Hey, welcome guys. Today we are going to take a look inside the box of Tamiya's M18 Hellcat. Now, I'm actually shocked. It is 2025 and I felt like this kit came out a year ago. I'm shocked to look at the box and see that it came out in 2021. That being said, I've obviously already looked in the box multiple times as I'm really excited to build this kit, and it looks like it came out yesterday. I know obviously Tamiya's new tooling is absolutely brilliant in their engineering, but it's still, 4 years later holds up. Obviously it still holds up, but there are some really interesting stuff in this kit that I wish we could get out of other kits. So with that little tease, let's flip it over and let's open the box here. Alright, so the M18 Hellcat. Really born from two things. One, the fact that really nobody had a match for German armor in World War II, at least in the early 40s, and especially the United States. It started with and was born from the M10, which was the United States' first attempt at really making a tank destroyer. Something that was mobile, fast enough that, and really with a big enough gun, because we went overseas with a bunch of 75 millimeter kind of low velocity shells and smaller against things that had 88 millimeter naval guns strapped to their tanks. So the evolution of the tank destroyer, there's many. I know Tamiya is releasing a Jackson later this summer. Hopefully nothing gets delayed, because that's going to be a really exciting kit as well. But this is a late war era vehicle. This is like 1944. It got sent to the Italian front for the first time as kind of a test. It also did serve in France after that, so like late 44. It was notably in the Battle of the Bulge, and overall it was one of the U.S.'s highest kill to loss ratio vehicles, meaning this was more or less their most effective. It was 2.3 to 1. So given the fact that Shermans didn't fare so well in the beginning, this was much needed, and definitely helped the Allies on their march into Germany. So let's see what we get in the box, and we'll start out with our kind of background information, which I have so kindly summed up for you in the past minute. And we will look at our paint guide. Now, you've heard me probably say in other videos before that this is kind of at least what I think we deserve as scale modelers. People that spend 40, 50 more bucks on a kit. I love the color guide. In color. Pun intended, I guess. But it already, at least for me, I can look at this and say, this is what I'm going to do. There's other reasons you could pick why you want to do a certain pattern. I just love the way the yellow, black, and green works. Also, the white star, right, looks great. But something that we can come back to and follow later in a really detailed description of where all these different decals are going to go. We also get a couple real-life photos. I believe there's 3 on here. So there is some reference / inspiration that can be had in here, which is really nice. And then I love that Tamiya does this as well. It's essentially just taking main parts of the tank and saying what they are. And for someone like myself that has to think of what some of these things are called off the top of their head when they're speaking, it is always very welcome. And a great way to learn. Then we have our instruction booklet. Paints required. Very typical Tamiya instructions. I'm not going to go too heavy into this. I will just say I have looked at them, and they are like any other Tamiya or Tamiya instruction. They're very clear. And depending on if you're going to do A or B, it's always going to signal that out, and you won't really have too many issues in terms of what you're trying to do. This is an interesting part though. Not having built it, I don't know exactly how this will build up. Having an interior, we're going to have to do some painting and things before we're done assembling, as much as I dislike doing that. But we have some decals that they are advising that we put on in this stage. So that was really, to me, the most interesting part of the instructions. Again, on the turret, I don't know if it's just being really informative, but like, for example, these wires, cables on this side are possibly going to go over that, and then I know the attachment of one of these side railings is going to be in the way of one of the stars. So that is definitely going to be the most difficult part of this build, but nothing that, you know, I think will cause any real kind of problems or hold us up too bad. In terms of the decals or decals, depending on where you're tuning in from, pretty simple. We have our two marking options, so nothing too crazy. They seem like pretty typical Tamiya decals, so if you think Tamiya decals are thick, that's kind of what these look like. Anyways, let's see what we have for sprues. So our first sprue, we have really the main kind of pieces of this build. We obviously have our upper hull, which is perfectly detailed. There's nothing crazy or amazing in here. We do have some kind of nice weld beads here, but a good amount of the detail is going to be added. And I know that this is a newer Tamiya kit, but here we do have some stuff molded on, but not a ton. So we have a couple, we'll call them blobs, but it's at least sharp detail. And then we have, looks like, the firewall to the engine. We have a really nice detailed floor. I think that's really great, at least. And part of the front here. So really nice sprue here. Definitely, unlike some Tamiya kits, we're definitely going to be adding some detail here, which I know is something that Tamiya, I won't, for lack of better terms, gets slammed for. You know, sometimes they go with engineering and functionality over detail. I don't think they're really sparing much detail here. Very seldom have I seen anything on this kit that really screams like sparing detail. Maybe with the exception of like some of these tool clamps, but that's just about the best that you're going to get without getting 3D printed. So this sprue, we have kind of some of the accessories. Obviously, we said the tools, front and rear fenders, as well as some of the railings and things, spare tracks, bunch of different things, small pieces that are going to go on. Maybe the most interesting part of this kit, and something that I would love to see somebody or just everybody else do. You've probably, if you watch the channel, you've probably heard me say it before. I do not like photo etch. I do not see a reason for photo etch. I understand the point of it. I just don't like working with it. I don't have a photo etch clamp. I don't have a ton of tools that really are going to help me with photo etch. So it comes from, you know, that kind of place. But we have really nice screens here. And they are plastic. I know like Dragon has done this before on their, I think they're called the Smart Kits, but I don't need photo etch if I get something like that. Now there are some injector pin marks, so maybe that's why you need photo etch, but from this side, you absolutely will not see those. That's a really good example of Tamiya engineering at its finest. Also, something as thin as this, I'm not an absolute expert, but a little slide mold there, and that looks perfectly in scale. Gonna go over, I assume, one of the headlights. We have our 50 cal on a mini sprue. in a couple different pieces with a handle or without. And then obviously some ammunition boxes and things like that. A couple clear parts. We'll just leave them in here. We have some goggles and then some headlight and periscope covers. Nothing really too crazy here. Probably the perfect amount of clear parts. And then we have a couple different parts of the gun and turret assembly. So we have the inside turret ring here, which this is, again, this is a really impressive part. It's thin. It's, at least to my knowledge, it's got to be in scale. Anything thinner than that, I probably don't want to build it anyways. We have a one-piece gun barrel here. It is going to have two different marks, and it has a very, very slight seam line. It's almost impossible to see with the shadow, but extremely minimal sanding will have to be done on that. So really, really nice. Definitely like a modern day sort of addition there. Then before we look at the figure, again, we have different parts of kind of the turret and the gun mantlet here, as well as looks like an ammunition rack and a couple different pieces of the interior. We have our canvas cover, which is going to go on in 3 different pieces, which is going to be really, really interesting. Having built something like that from Tamiya before, I just have a feeling it's going to go together perfect with no seams, but we'll have to wait and see for the build. In terms of the figure, this is up to par with Tamiya's machine gunner team, which just came out, I think, last year in 2024. This is up to par with that. It's obviously a U.S. figure, not a German machine gunner, but it just looks perfect. Now, I'm not planning on doing him with the kit, but I will definitely save him, maybe just to paint up if I ever made a diorama or just want to practice on a figure. So he's tank commander outside of the vehicle, but really, really nice figure if that's something that you're interested in. Next up, we have 2 of these sprues, so I will just show you one. And this is going to be the wheels, the parts of the suspension and track. Sorry, doesn't look like any suspension on here. This is just the wheels, the track. So we have our road wheels, which perfectly detailed. Good enough. We have our tracks, which are very detailed, especially for U.S. tracks. There's not a whole lot to them. They're not as complex as maybe a Tiger track, something like that. We have our ammunition racks for the inside. And of course, these tracks are Lincoln length, which, as much as I love when a U.S. kit comes with rubber band tracks, but these are Lincoln length. I assume they are going to go together pretty perfectly, and we should be able to build them separately and kind of take them off in painting and put them back on. Just judging by the, the amount of room and everything on the side skirts and fenders. So very, very nice there. Not too much, but just enough detail. And then we have our final sprue. And it is the kind of build it yourself bathtub style hull. Not a ton to show on this. This is going to be obviously the sides. These are going to be the fenders later. But if you're interested in detail on the bottom of the tank, we have some very nice weld seams. So if you want to display the tank upside down, you could do so. But this is one of my favorite parts of building a kind of new tooled Tamiya kit, is the way that this goes together is just perfect. It's just very, very pleasing. It always puts a smile on my face. It almost clicks together like a Lego. And you can see already this is probably going to be more rigid than anything else. And whatever pieces, the floor that goes in here, are going to brace those together even more. So really, really exciting. 2 more small things in the kit. We get 2 little poly caps to make the turret move. And then we get our string. So this is going to be for the tow cables. Not everybody... I don't know how I feel about string. It looks the part. It certainly doesn't take the shape. If it was being wrapped, I have no problem with string. This is not being wrapped. This kind of runs along, we'll say, the length of the vehicle. So, I don't know. I might use wire. I might not. I do like the way that string looks. It just doesn't have the same workability. I don't know if that's a word. If it isn't, it is now. It doesn't have the same workability as, you know, some of the other options out there, some of the softer kind of wires and things. So, let me just put this back in the box quickly. So, my plans for this kit are nothing too crazy. With the Jackson coming out, I wanted to do... Originally, I was going to do this in the winter camo. That was my original plan for it. And then I kind of saw on the Jackson kit that one of the 2 marking options is for winter camo. So, not going to do winter on this because I know it's going to be... It's almost July right now. So by the time that the Jackson comes out, I think it's in August, I will be just finishing up this kit, and it'll be 2 tank destroyers kind of back to back. So what I want to do is make one and then make the other obviously different. Keep things a little bit different on the channel, but also for my own sanity, this and the Jackson are going to be probably very similar. And this will just help, you know, keep them a little bit different. So that's what I'm planning to do with this kit, is just out of the box, you know, kind of make it look like the box art. Obviously we will weather it and things like that, but olive drab, nothing too crazy, kind of just set it up so that we can make the Jackson without being too repetitive. So if you've made it this far, I'd please ask you, if you haven't already, to like and subscribe to the channel. Obviously, we'll be doing this build, and as you know, the Jackson and many other models in the future. I would thank you for lasting this long, and I would love to hear in the comments. I assume they're all going to be good, but I'd love to hear what people's thoughts were. If you built this kit, if you're just looking at this kit for the first time, anything like that, let me know what you think about it. I do read and respond to every single comment. So again, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the build video.